Well, Moscow's Victory Day parades also are happening in the same week as the release of a report suggesting that Vladimir Putin has sharply increased his personal security amid fears of a betrayal by Russia's elite and even a coup. Now, the information in the document claims to be based on European intelligence assessments, though its authenticity hasn't been verified. According to the report, Vladimir Putin's fears about the elite are being compounded by suspicions of and within the country's elite security apparatus. He talks of growing distrust between Russia's security services and claims that former Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has come under increased suspicion inside the Kremlin. So let's see what a seasoned Russia watcher makes of this. Roman Dobrokhotov is founder and editor-in-chief of the investigative outlet The Insider, which has published major investigations into Russian intelligence operations and indeed is banned in Russia. A welcome to DW, Roman. This report is said to have come from a European intelligence agency. So first of all, do you find it credible? Do its contents chime with what you have learned from your own reporting?
Yes, we also have some sources in different circles of Russian elites, including Russian intelligence. And I remember that it was around a year ago, also somewhere in spring, maybe also in May, when one of our main sources, very high-ranking intelligence officer, was saying that they are expecting that economy will get worse, and like around a year after, they're expecting something bad happening in political and economic situation, and the first signs of which will be that people will become more vocal about the situation, will speak at first in kitchens and in lines in shops, and then in social media, criticizing at first the war itself, and then the president political situation. That's how it's starting. That's what they were afraid, and we were pretty skeptical a year ago. But now, like several months ago, we see that something like this is happening. So we see very quickly growing deficit. We see how people in very different circles, starting from political activists, then even to propagandists, they are starting becoming more and more critical about war, even about the president himself, which is tabooed in Russia, absolutely.
Right.
So we see a real change in the mood. It's difficult to say how big political change it can bring, but we would definitely see that something is changing very quickly in last months.
Okay, so let's talk about the report itself. Which of the revelations in there stood out most to you?
So what is different from what we are hearing is that they name Shoigu as one of the figures that can be opposed to Vladimir Putin personally. So we don't see it the same way. We don't see that Shoigu is really a central figure here, but it may be very well, because there is conflict with Shoigu's team. So it's difficult to predict what line it will be,
right,
where the crack will be. But
let me just interrupt you. Let me just interrupt you there, Roman. Sorry, just for the viewers to know that we're talking about Sergei Shoigu, Russia's former defense minister, and his is one of the names that has come up as being potentially associated with a coup plot. And I suppose the question would be, why would he turn against his master in this way?
Well, there is a crack. There is a problem between two parts of elite. So Shoigu at some point was one of the closest people in this narrow circle, where were only around a dozen of high-ranking figures there, and Vladimir Putin would spend every summer together with Shoigu in Siberia. So he would rarely seen with his family, but his family would be Shoigu every vacation. So he was one of the closest people. But after Prigozhin's coup, we saw that there was like a very big conflict inside the military, and as a compromise, Shoigu was fired, and most of his team had to go away. Many of them were very corrupted people, and there were criminal investigations against them. So it broke some consensus, some balance, and it led to lots of conflicts within the military system. But again, I don't think that this is the main problem right now. So it can be one of the dozens of hidden conflicts in elite, but the main problem is that there is no resources, no money, and no legitimacy in continuation of this war.
Okay, and that was one of the biggest things, not just the former defense minister Shoigu, but the fact that the problem, the threat, as Putin seems to see it, is coming from the elite rather than from external actors like Western intelligence agencies or indeed Ukraine. And you mentioned there this notion that a consensus has been broken, this idea that if there is a problem amongst the elite, what you do is you quietly push them to one side rather than firing them so publicly. So they're all resentful of the way they're being treated by the boss.
Yes, but I think that if the situation was different, if economic situation was different, if there were also big victories in Ukraine, there would be no problem with firing Shoigu. The problem is that everybody see in Russia that there is nothing in this war, nothing happening, only economic problems, sanctions. Economy got worse and worse. No one see any good exit strategy, and people just never witnessed in 25 years living under Putin's regime real worsening of economic situation for everybody, because there used to be very big reserves, and now they all dissolved, also because they were frozen after the full-scale invasion, and also because Russia's economy feels very bad. So it will be the first time in 25 years when people next year will be really feel the consequences, will be more poor than they used to be. So this is a very big challenge for Vladimir Putin, and I think elites will use it also to test at least idea of a change.
Right. Okay, so you think this is a real thing, that there are moves behind the scenes. So do we therefore expect Kremlin bloodletting, more firings, more movements away from the centre of power, or does he just let this run and bide his time?
It's difficult to predict because, we would expect in usual situations something like some cleansing inside the elites to get rid of the less trustworthy figures. But we saw previously that Vladimir Putin sometimes behaves very strangely. He's like hiding, doing nothing. And at one point, it already led to a coup by Prigozhin when he criticized the military leadership for months, more and more bravely, and no one was stopping him. So system wasn't trying even to somehow stop him. So it ended with a real military coup. So we don't know how Putin will behave now. So did he learn some lessons? Will he this time be more, self-assured? But we see that he really takes it very seriously. So we see lots of measures that he's doing. So like mostly we see it like more security in Moscow. He's not appearing in Kremlin almost anymore, and it's like on the physical side. But there are also hidden things that we see from hear from our sources. Like he became very, very cautious, and his narrow circle became even more narrow. There are lots of conflicts between FSB and GRU now, and even within the
these are the security services within Russia.
Yes, so main security, so military security GRU is now conflicting with FSB. Within GRU, there are also lots of conflicts. So again, if it was another situation, if the economic situation was good and the military situation in Ukraine was at least as it used to be several years ago, it would be very different. But now, like millions of Russian people expect some changes, also because there were peace talks with Trump, and people really believe that, well, maybe at some point it will stop and we will return to business as usual. So there are expectations, and Putin cannot give anything for people or for this.
So if Putin genuinely then fears betrayal or assassination, is that likely to change the way Russia behaves internationally, or is this something that will be dealt with behind closed doors at home?
Well, absolutely. If Putin is eliminated, the situation in international relations would change dramatically, because there is no one besides Putin himself and his very narrow circle who really wants continuation of this war. It was his idea and his initiative. He failed because his plan was too much optimistic, and now he just has to continue because he put everything on stake and he cannot change the route. But everybody around, including Russian government, especially Russian economic branch of the government, and even including Russian intelligence, they also want this political line to change. First of all, to stop the war, but I also think that they will be ready to something what happened after Stalin's death, so some kind of change of political regime to more liberal course, because they want lifting sanctions and they want less tension within the society.
Okay, so if this is what is going on, there are these tensions behind the scenes, there is a movement for change which wouldn't be there if the economy was better, but the economy is not. Everyone's suffering, especially the elites. Who should we be watching? Who should we be watching either to move against Putin or being set up to replace him? What should we be looking out for?
Well, this is a very simple strategic game. Everyone who would be suspected as a person who can challenge Vladimir Putin would be eliminated first. That's why no one would ever dare to show that they are the possible consensus leaders. So, and we saw it in Russian history. So when Beria changed Stalin, he then was shot by his former colleagues. Because this will be a very tough competition. So I think we should watch not the political figures and not leaders, but we need to watch what people in Russia, so not oppositioners, but just usual like opinion leaders and usual, I don't know, bloggers, even propagandists, what they are saying, because we see that former propagandists, even pro-Kremlin provocators, now openly criticizing Vladimir Putin and being not punished. So this is a sign of weakness of the system, and this is a sign of some change that was impossible to believe a year ago.
Right. Roman Dobrokhotov, editor-in-chief of The Insider Moscow, thank you.